Let's go to Professor Anthony now, Anthony Turton from the Centre for Environmental Management at the University of the Free State, to give us his reaction to the Blue Drop report. Professor, thank you so much for joining us here on SABC News this evening. I'm sure you've seen the interview we've just conducted with the Deputy Minister for Water and Sanitation. Perhaps let's start off with just your reaction to the Blue Drop report.
No, look, I could not see the interview, unfortunately, but just reading at sort of headline level, it would appear as if the report is showing a deterioration of water quality in almost all places except the metros, which is an interesting thing because those are supplied by your big bulk suppliers like Rand Water, Mgani Water and Berg Water. So that's an interesting topic in its own right. And the other thing, of course, is that these reports only deal with water quality, not service delivery, not water availability. So one needs to contextualize that.
And Professor, speaking to the Minister just a short while ago, he has said that the problems surrounding some of those municipalities who don't have a good quality water is, he's saying, historical challenges of infrastructure. And, that's what he's saying, that some is poor management of wastewater treatment plants, and that's why we have pollution as well. What do you have to say, to the infrastructure problems and the historical challenges that he's attributing this to?
Look, personally, I think let the facts speak for themselves. The ANC has been in power for over a quarter of a century now. In that quarter of a century, the population of the country has doubled. So the question that we need to ask logically is, what have they done about upgrading the infrastructure in areas that they've controlled? So to blame something else, I think is quite disingenuous. And as a scientist, personally, I reject that because it's not helpful at all. The simple fact of the matter is that the ruling party has been in control for the last 25 years, and during that period of time, the simple fact of the matter is that your infrastructure has deteriorated and your institutions have failed. This is the important thing. Institutional failure is far more significant, in my opinion, than the actual failure of your infrastructure.
And, looking at this Blue Drop report, of course, it shows that there is still good quality of water being delivered to residents in those metro municipalities. And one would ask, when it comes to those in other municipalities, and just painting a picture for us, how bad would you say it is, specifically pointing out to problems being faced in the likes of the Free State, the likes of the Northern Cape, the likes of even in KwaZulu-Natal? How bad is the situation in those municipalities?
Yes, I think the situation is dire, and one needs only look at the numbers around your wastewater. So in other words, your green drop reporting. The green drop reporting has indicated that approximately 2/3 of all wastewater works in South Africa are dysfunctional. That's a lot. That's a lot of wastewater works. We produce around about 7 billion litres of waste every single day, and that all goes back into our rivers, with a small exception of some of the coastal cities that discharge out to sea. But the majority of that 7 billion litres goes every day back into the rivers. And if 2/3 of those wastewater works are dysfunctional, that feeds directly into the drinking water draw points for your potable water production. And that's one of the reasons why your potable water systems are now showing such a high level of biological contamination. Now, all of this is institutional failure. This is a failure of the decision-making machinery, the decision-making processes, the majority of which are actually at local municipal level. And this is a structural problem in South Africa, because while the problem is manifest as a national problem, the solutions are always going to lie at local government level. And this, of course, exposes a very significant challenge to South Africa, because the National Department of Water and Sanitation doesn't have jurisdiction in those municipal areas. So this is actually in part a constitutional crisis as much as it is a technical crisis.
And how possible can this problem in various municipalities be turned around?
Look, it has to be turned around. It's a question of where we can't sort of ask, if it's not possible. It has to be done, and I think that we are actually at a very, very critical point now. I would almost say we are at an inflection point in our history, and I think that the forthcoming elections are going to play a critical role in deciding whether South Africa is going to actually continue sinking like the Titanic at the moment, or if we are going to slowly start turning the ship around. And if we can turn the ship around, it is salvageable. But in order to do that, we're going to have to change fundamentally the way that we manage our systems at the moment. And I think at the moment, if you just look at the amount of capital needed to fix what's broken, there's no way that the taxpayer can carry that cost. It's just not physically possible. We're talking over R1 trillion that's going to be needed just to fix what's broken in the water sector. And we know that the economy is declining, so the tax base is declining, and the number of taxpayers is also declining because many are migrating to other countries. So we really are facing a serious crisis in the country. It's not only a water crisis, it's a crisis of economic significance as well. But it can be turned around because there is an abundance of technology available. There's also a significant amount of capital that would be willing to go into that space as sort of private investment, but then there have to be certain preconditions put in place. One of them is the governance structures have to be improved so that people can't steal the money. And I think this is likely to start happening after the next election.
And, when it comes to resolving this crisis, you are also painting a bleak picture there when it comes to the amount of money needed for a systems upgrade. How long can it take South Africa to come to a point where it is able to deliver clean, quality drinking water for everyone in this country, including more specifically those in rural communities?
Well, that all comes down to political will at the end of the day, and political will is an important thing, but it's also driven by economic viability. The simple reality is that the South African economy has been slowing down for decades now. We haven't really had an economic boom for the last 2 decades, and in that period of time, your population has doubled. So we actually have to aim for something like a 7% population growth, 7% economic growth year on year for at least the next decade or 2, if we are simply going to employ the born-free generation. So this is a serious thing, and this is something that I think we could start getting our heads around if there was the political will to aim specifically at concerted economic development, in which case that R1 trillion investment into capital upgrade would then become a major cash injection back into the economy, into job creation and what have you. And so that kind of thinking, I think, is going to have to start dominating our thought process in the future. When you just look at the images that you have on your screen at the moment to see the extent of the decay, this is widespread systemic failure.
Professor, thank you so much for your time and your contributions on the show. That is Professor Anthony Turton. He is from the Centre for Environmental Management at the University of the Free State. They're giving us just his insights when it comes to the Blue Drop and Green Drop reports being released by the Department of Water and Sanitation today.